I'd like to welcome each of you to our Fire Training Center. Roseville Fire is a proud partner in the Master Mutual Aid system in the state of California, and therefore we are happy to welcome you. And at this time, I'll turn the mic over to Chief Preparedness.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, and good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this demonstration. This demonstration follows an experiment that Roy Wright from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety will talk about. But today's event really pairs with the kickoff that Chief Tyler, the Director and Fire Chief of CAL FIRE, kicked off this morning, Wildfire Preparedness Week, emphasizing to the public the work that our firefighters, that our local partners, our military partners, our tribal partners, our federal partners have all done to prepare for the peak of fire season. But more importantly, this is a week that we can all take an opportunity to pause and ensure that we as homeowners, as Californians, have taken the proper steps to be ready for wildfire. Today's demonstration will really highlight the two main objectives that we focus on as part of our wildfire resilience strategy for the community, and that is the combination of good defensible space. 100 feet of defensible space is what we look for in wildfire-prone areas, but really looking specifically at an additional 0 to 5 feet, this ember-resistant zone that, again, the team here will talk about. Pairing it, though, with retrofits and hardening of the home itself. What we have experienced, what research, what science has shown us, is that it's that combination of defensible space with an ember-resistant zone with home hardening that really significantly increases the chance of a home surviving a wildfire. And so we're very glad to be able to show this demonstration, because I will tell you, having experienced it during the testing phases, I became a believer and understood the importance of this ember-resistant zone after watching this demonstration when it was in the experiment stage. So appreciate everyone being here, appreciate the public for taking the time to learn more about an ember-resistant zone and home hardening. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the folks who are making this demonstration happen, the leaders in the research when it comes to wildfire. Roy Wright, the CEO of the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Roy?
Good afternoon. It's great to be here in California. I was able to join Chief Tyler this morning in Sherman Land. The kind of broader work that's going on wildfire preparedness. I grew up just about 40 miles from here and learned wildfire because it was a place where things, though, have changed over the last 3 decades. We see red flag days as normal. They're no longer something that is unique or special, but it's something that we see over and over again. And that's why IBHS does the research that it does. The Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety is supported by 100 insurance companies that come together and says, we need to narrow the path of disasters. And we're focused on the wildfire piece of that today, particularly for homeowners, because we're not powerless against these pieces. There are a number of things you need to do to prepare your home for wildfire. Some of them can only be done at the point of new construction. And in more rural areas, there's work that you need to do from 5 to 30 feet and 30 feet out to 100. But we're going to focus on the ember today, that little spark that can pick up and loft and land near your home. They regularly pick up and loft a half mile or more. You don't need to be right next to the open grassland or the wooded lands. This can come in, and when that ember lands, you want to make sure it just fizzles out. But all too often, instead, we see the area around the house literally inviting those embers in. So we're going to put this research on display. I was doing one of these where we brought the science here to California, down in Southern California. I was standing next to a fire chief, literally looking side by side at something like this. And he goes, I don't know if it's going to burn. And I said, let's watch. And over the course of the next 12 minutes, he walked back up behind me, tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, Roy, I got work to do tonight at my house. There are pieces here that can be done in that space. But I want to make sure that we understand that the science is also very personal because we want to translate this for homeowners. Gary Ledbetter has joined us here. He lost his home in the campfire up in Paradise. Gary and his wife Sean are survivors, and they've become leaders in the wildfire resilient space to understand how you can build and live in a way so that the fire doesn't take you out.
Thank you, Roy. He's right. My wife and I are survivors of a campfire, 2018, on November 8th, and it happened in the morning. As I left to come here, my wife gave me a smile and sent me away with one statement. Said, honey, tell them how to be resilient. I said, that's why I'm here. That's the only reason why I'm here today. Is not only, I'm going to share my experience, but more importantly, I'm going to share my encouragement and a bit of a call to arms to us as brothers and sisters. You are empowered. You don't have to be a victim like I was. So I'm going to start with a little history of what happened. We got a phone call early morning from my sister who lived an hour away and saw the smoke. I had no idea. I had a threat coming to my doorstep. My wife and I had our morning tea, stepped outside, and I'm not going to use profanity, but we did that morning. We looked over there and we realized this is bad. We got to go. And it was bad. We feared for our lives. We lost everything. 35 years of marriage at that point in time. Things we've accumulated, memories, photos, videos, hand-me-downs from loved ones, gone. The house, gone. Not a comb, not a toothbrush, just the clothes on her back, basically. And then top that off with fear. That we were trying to get out of there and not die. And it was a bad day. My hope is I never see anyone go through what I went through, what my wife and I went through. Today is a demonstration back on science. Today is a demonstration with collaboration from stakeholders and entities that specialize in wildfire, in mitigation, and suppression. My specialty is I can tell you my experience. And my experience says you don't want to go through it. If you can avoid it, avoid it. And there's a lot of things you can do that are within your grasp to avoid it. If you own a home, if you own property, even if you don't, you probably know someone who does, a parent, a loved one, a friend. Be part of that extension of the knowledge that's shared through these programs that you'll see today. Because the day of the fire, I did not possess that knowledge. I possess it now, to the 10th power compared to what I had that day. But I want to stand here and encourage everyone to be resilient. I want you to practice being resilient. I want you to pursue being resilient because it's within your grasp. Be empowered. I'm going to turn it over to Steve Hawks, Director of Wildfire.
As a seasonal firefighter in Yuba County for CAL FIRE, and when I retired in 2022, I was the Assistant Deputy Director under CAL FIRE's Office of the State Fire Marshal, Community Wildfire Preparedness and Mitigation Division underneath Chief Verlant. During the last few years of my career at CAL FIRE, and in my short time so far with IVHS, I've really seen the wildfire research that IVHS conducts. From the one-of-a-kind research center that we have in Richburg, South Carolina, to our post-fire analysis on some of the U.S.'s most destructive wildfires, we've translated this research in science into science-based mitigation actions that homeowners can implement on their property to meaningfully reduce the risks of their structure. So today's demonstration is a tale of two structures. On the right, we have a home that is prepared for wildfire, built with the latest in fire-resistant materials, and featuring a non-combustible first 5 feet immediately surrounding the structure. On the left, we have a home that you might find located across California in wildfire-prone areas today. Has wood siding, wood mulch, wood fence, plants right up against the siding of the house. So you all have a front row seat to see how this demonstration unfolds. In a short moment, we're going to ignite fires in front of both of these structures, simulating that embers have flown in from a nearby fire and land in front of both of these structures, igniting fires. I will be joined at that point by our chief engineer, Dr. Ann Cope, and we will give you a narration of what we are seeing so that you understand better what is happening in front of you. At maybe a little before 2 o'clock, once the structure on the left-hand side is well involved, we will invite the news media to do one-on-one interviews with our key dignitaries that are here today. For your safety, we put out a line of cones across the front here, so please stay back behind those line of cones. It gives you a safe distance to view this demonstration from, because that burning structure is going to put off a lot of radiant heat, and we don't want to see anyone get injured. After the fire has been put out by our firefighters, then we'll allow people to step forward if they want a closer look at these structures, to take video and conduct further interviews. And with that, we're going to go ahead and start the demonstration. Okay, so what you see is our firefighters in their full protective gear using a firefighting tool called a drip torch, and they're igniting fires in front of each structure in approximately the same number of fires in about the same locations. And we're simulating, like I mentioned, embers floating in front of these structures, landing in front of them, and igniting fires. And if left for them to burn, if nobody is there to take care of them, if a fire engine is not parked in the driveway to take care of these spot fires, they will continue to burn and eventually reach that structure and ignite that structure.
Yeah, Steve, excellent point. So we've got pretty much the same number of small spot fires in front of the wildfire prepared home and in front of the typical home. And you might take a look at this and say, well, I could put that out with a garden hose. Yes, you could. But the difficulty is things like this are happening in hundreds of yards, hundreds of neighborhood locations. When the embers from that wildfire come into the neighborhood, they can come from more than a mile, and just lots and lots and lots of spot fires. It is overwhelming to try to put them all out. So the pieces and parts that we have here today are demonstrating how a home can passively survive that ember onslaught, so that we don't have to put our fire service personnel in every driveway. It's just not possible to have that type of manpower.
Yeah, when firefighters are available to defend your home, they do a tremendous job and have a good chance at defending a home, that, especially when it's prepared like this, the home on the right, really gives the firefighters a better chance at defending that structure. But they're just not always available. Their primary focus is on life safety, and as long as people are in harm's way in front of the fire, their focus is getting them out of harm's way before they turn their attention to defending structures.
A lot of times we also get but those plants are green, but they're well cared for, but they're, freshly watered. And you can see the green, freshly watered plants there on the typical side are now catching fire, and they will absolutely burn. Even though they're very healthy and perfectly cared for, they are absolutely combustible. We often refer to those as the little green gas cans that are right next to the structure. And, this fire is progressing. Over here on the wildfire prepared side, you can see the mulch is absolutely burning. And these small bushes here will probably catch fire just like these others. But it's separated from the building far enough that it's not going to pose a threat.
And so one thing that is common on all destructive wildfires is wind. Wind is the primary driver of wildfires, and really what makes it get into communities and travel through communities. igniting and spreading from structure to structure. So if you look at the fires that are burning, the fires over here on the left-hand side are kind of pushing from kind of right to left. If you look at the fire that's closer to the fences, it's pushing towards the wildfire prepared home side. So you get variation in wind speed, wind direction, wind travel through communities, and it really pushes the fire around in different directions.
The other thing people often comment as well, this is taking a little bit. It's not instantaneous. In today's technology world, we expect things to be very quick. It is going to take a couple of minutes, and that's the whole point. The embers land, they create spot fires. Those creeping small things are just getting closer and closer to the structure, and there's not anyone there and available to put it out. So the science has shown us all of these things that are here in the wildfire prepared home allow that home to passively resist the fire and wait it out.
And so if we look at both of these structures, they both have a Class A roof on them, which is the highest level of resistance to wildfire. But then when you look lower on the structure, we have wood siding on the structure on the left. We have open eaves. We have a vinyl gutter with debris, pine needles and leaves inside of that gutter, vinyl downspout. We have the wood mulch right up against the siding of the house, plants right within that 5 feet. We also have a small little wood pile over here that just adds to the fuel that's right up against this structure. On the right-hand side, we have enclosed eave, or what's known as a soffitted eave. We also have cement fiberboard, so concrete fiberboard. We have that non-combustible first 5 feet metal fence attached to the side of the house. There's just nowhere for the fire to get to that house and ignite it.
The other thing that's kind of interesting to me is look at the fire across the top of the mulch. All the experiments that we do back in the lab in South Carolina, looking at how different things burn, how they impact the houses, how they wake fire to the structure. The mulch is always like the last thing burning. That mulch will burn for hours and hours and hours and just keep the threat of wildfire right there next to the home. You can really hear the crackling now. And it looks like the fire is snaking its way into that corner there where we have that large plant right next to the house.
We also have the fires right up against the edge of the structure on the corner, left-hand corner over here.
I think that siding is probably getting pretty hot. It looks like it might be off-gassing a little bit.
So look at the vinyl gutter,
yeah.
how it's sagging. Now all that material, when that gutter sags like this, and it has a chance to detach from that the roof line there, it can drop all that material. Burning material just adds to that fuel loading that allows the fire to get to the house.
And that bush right there in the corner is lighting now. Once it lights and is fully involved, that's going to be a very hot source right next to the combustible.
We have ignition of the structure over here on the left corner.
Oh, see, there you go. I thought I saw that off-gassing. So that combustible siding has already been lit by the mulch. Now we have the threat of the large bush right next to the wooden fence. It's a race at this point. It's like, did the mulch light the siding? Did the mulch light the fence? Was it in the gutter? All of those vulnerabilities. It could have been one, it could have been the other. This time it was the siding that caught fire first.
And we put out fans here to simulate wind, as I mentioned earlier, but we kind of have somewhat of a natural breeze here today, so we're not going to turn the fans on at this point. You saw that the downspout detached, that's just going to add to the fire loading right there.
The other thing that's interesting, you saw the water coming out of the gutter there. Chief Berlin just reminded me, it rained. It rained like over an inch here just on Saturday. And so, that's why there was water in that gutter. So those leaves up there are wet. All of this is occurring freshly after a rain. This part too is going to take a little bit. The siding is lit. That structure is a goner, right? It's not going to survive this type of incident. And yet it's still going to take a little bit for it to be that fully involved fireborne. I'm glad we're keeping everything wet over there so that anything that blows is not going to light any of the structures over there. Notice the mulch in front of the wildfire prepared home. It's still burning. It'll still be burning when this other structure is hit the ground. That's how much of a threat it is.
I don't know if you caught it, in that corner over there where the fence attaches to the side of the house, there was some little fire whirls for a minute. That's just competing winds that are flowing in there, causing that fire in there to develop into like a tornado style.
It's got some heat going on in the corner there. The fence is starting to light there at the bottom. Had the structure not already been lit by some of the other vulnerabilities, the fence itself is fully capable of wicking the fire straight to the structure. So wooden fence is like stacking up matchsticks right next to your house. You can still have the wooden fence in the rest of your yard, but notice on the wildfire prepared side, the last 5 feet are a non-combustible piece of fence. We've chosen metal here for this demonstration, but there are other things available for you. Just break the chain and have non-combustible right next to the house.
We're really getting good fire development on the fence and in that corner there. Fire shouldn't be able to climb up the siding, get underneath the eave line.
And at some point we're going to get enough heat to where that window pane is going to crack. So one noticeable difference between typical and more hardened construction is that dual pane tempered window. Once we get enough heat up in there, now it's up into the eave area. The window frame itself will melt. The pane might fall out. That's something that we have to look forward to here in the next minute or so. We've definitely got it all the way up the side and into the roofing at this point. You can see the difference in the smoke coming up through the roof.
So it looks like we have the fire that's burning up underneath the eaves right now.
Mulch on this side, still burning. All of the plant material, save for that one there in the middle, has been consumed. You saw how green they were. All of them have burned. We've got a lot of smoke on the inside. Once it gets up in there into the framing of the structure, the amount of heat that's inside that is going to, you'll see it, it's going to get really orange here in a few minutes with that burning of the actual 2x4s themselves. Slow and steady as she goes. So Steve, how often have you seen things like this as you guys have been responding in neighborhoods? If somebody comes upon this, what do they have to decide?
Yeah, so as a firefighter, they have to make a choice. If they're able to get there before the fire approaches or as the fire's reaching the structure, they can do a lot of things, like they will detach the wood fence from the side of the building and throw it away to the side, try to discard the small pile of firewood that's over here, move combustible items away from the house. But if the house has fire on it, then they have to make a tough choice. Do I try to put the fire out, or do I let this fire continue to go to burn, and do I move on to the next structure? And so that's a really tough decision for firefighters.
And a lot of the science and experiments that we have put together at IBHS is also together with the post-disaster event studies to figure out how can we effectively create these passive mitigation systems whereby both structures were exposed to the same thing. Spot fires from embers. The one on the right, the mulch is still burning, but the threat is far enough away from the structure that it's not going to ignite it, even if it were very windy today. The one on the right is slowly but surely going to be consumed. It is the embers themselves are the largest threat. Whether you've got wildland fire from a forested area coming in, or if it's the next house that's burning, the embers are the first thing that's going to arrive in the neighborhood to try to start a fire. You can really see that world right there in front of the burning structure.
So we're getting a lot of heat built up at the base of that structure. That's what's causing the fire to be drawn in and the smoke to be drawn in. So we'll start to see the fire climb up the wall and then watch the window as it gets impacted by the fire. The window frame being vinyl will start to sag. The window panes will eventually break and fall out. And then once the window breaks and falls out, then really have a good chance for the fire to get seated inside the structure at that point and bring it to the ground.
The heat and the impact to the window that Steve is talking about, that's one of the reasons why it's so important for all the homes on the street and all the homes in the neighborhood to take the science into account and to all be ember resistant. Because the amount of heat that's about to come off of this burning structure will be a threat to all of the homes around it. If all of them had been wildfire prepared homes, sure, we would have some mulch and maybe some plants burning, maybe a wood fence or two. But the idea that one would catch the other and catch the other like falling dominoes would not happen on a street where all of the homes are hardened against it.
So one thing that we saw when we did our post-fire analysis in Lahaina on Maui was that a home that survived has a positive effect on the homes that are downwind from that home. So if it survives, it's not burning, it's not predisposing the structures that are downwind from it, from that radiant heat, from additional embers that are coming off of that structure burning, and that increase the likelihood that those structures that are downwind will ignite themselves. So it's that community effect that taking these mitigation steps really has a big impact on the ability for a fire to spread throughout the community.
And so often we think about the fuels that are within the forested area or within the wildland area. It's the homes in the neighborhood that can become a fuel and serve as either a fuel break or an opportunity to spread the fire further through the neighborhood. It's also very interesting, the character of the fire changes drastically when the things that are burning change. So all of the things that we have, think about all the stuff that's in your home, the curtains, the sofa, the building materials, all of those things then create embers that are even bigger and more destructive than the ones that we see from naturally occurring wildland fires. Now that wind's shifting around, isn't it?
Yeah, we're starting to get the good development of fire on the left-hand side over here.
And it's now sort of on the back side of the fence, still going up the wall.
We've done a few of these demonstrations. We found that each one's a little bit different on where the structure might ignite. The first two that we did last year, the fire started in that corner, what we call a re-entrant corner, where the wood fence attaches to the side of the house. That is a location where wind kind of funnels through and draws the fire into that location. The one we did last week in Idaho started on the same corner as the one today here on the far outside corner, and then burned up, kind of died back down, burned up in different locations, died back down, doing very much what this one's doing here today.
Yes. Each one has a little bit of its own special character, and yet the outcome is the vulnerability that may have started the whole thing could be just slightly different. The outcome is going to be very similar. It just might take a few extra minutes on one side or the other. One question we often get is why 5 feet? What's so magical about the number 5? What I find interesting about the number 5 as an engineer and a researcher is that we actually land on that number for two different reasons. The way the wind interacts with typical home size, like single or double story home, the way the wind interacts with that creates an eddy that's approximately 5 feet from the structure. And the other thing is, as you move a typical burning brand style of fire closer and further from the house, how much heat is being absorbed by the walls and how it's threatening the combustion temperature of typical building materials. Moving that thing 5 feet away is also a great number. So whether it's the embers from the wind swirl or the location of that heat, that's what comes up with that 5-foot zone for keeping it away from the structure.
So the fire's burned through the siding in this corner, and now it's on the inside of the structure. And you can see fire coming out from the eave line here in the front. You can see
Here.
smoke billowing out a little bit from the back of the structure.
You can even see a few small plumes of smoke through the asphalt shingles themselves. There's a bigger one now. So now we have the big orange glow
So watch
in the window.
Watch the window. Yep. Watch the window. See the start to peel back. The vinyl melt off, and it's exposing that window now. And it won't be much longer before the window breaks and falls out.
And you can feel the heat. All started because of small drip source. See the metal pieces of the frame of the window?
Here we go. We had window break on the bottom panel.
Yep. Looks like it fell to the inside.
Yes.
And that, the other panel fell to that.
So it's going to start to get much warmer out here now.
Yeah. And this is what we're talking, that level of heat. That's not a full-size house, it's just a small representation of a house. So imagine your neighbor's house is burning and the threat that it creates to yours. I call that fully involved, Steve.
Yep, I think. So we're ready to move to media interviews of talking to our key officials that are here.
book out and Stephens, Marco, like Classic County Fire Marshals. They work for yeah, so there's 5 stations. It's the basically the same. Why we invent the wheel. One of them's both at the time. Oh, that's CFO down with Dean. You know him, he's AU, the Wildfire resilience DC. Daniel did come over there. They were all out. My wife did a C-130 event this morning. I've known her for a long time. I've known her since she was a firefighter. She will be one to take anything away from what they about it. Like she's not going to be, you know. But yes.
Too late. Firefighters, you put fires out. All right, folks, looks like that's the end of it here. So this is Wildfire Preparedness Week. Check out our video earlier at McClellan. Showed off some of the C-130s that are going to be ready later this year. And this was a great presentation here showing what some ember cast can do. The drip torch there. Structure on the left burned in, I'd say, less than 20 minutes. So you can see the home on the right has that concrete defensible space there around it, while the home on the left have the wood chips and vegetation.